My name is Ryan Cleary, Member of Parliament for St. John, South Mount Pearl. This is your weekly video blog update. I gave a couple of speeches this week in the House of Commons. The first speech was on Bill C-47. It's called the Northern Jobs and Growth Act. And it's about development regulations, updating development regulations for the North, for Nunavut and for the Northwest Territories. And I thought it was important to speak on this particular bill because of the parallels between the North and Labrador, the development and the regulations in Labrador. Let's show a short clip of that speech.
Why is a Member of Parliament for Newfoundland and Labrador from the great riding of St. John, South Mount Pearl speaking on a bill for the Northwest Territories? Well, Mr. Speaker, I feel that Labrador, in particular the Labrador part of my province, has a lot in common, has very much in common with the Northwest Territories. We must be vigilant, Mr. Speaker, we must be vigilant to ensure there's balance between development and the impact of the environment. We must ensure there is balance in everything.
I also gave a speech in the Commons this week on the Senate, more specifically on the need to abolish the Senate. I believe that the Senate is beyond saving. At the same time, I believe in democratic reform, so that smaller provinces like ours, like Newfoundland and Labrador, have an equal seat at the Confederation table, like larger provinces like Ontario and Quebec, to offset representation by population in the House of Commons. We've got to figure that out through democratic reform. Let's show a clip on that.
The point that I'm getting to, Mr. Speaker, is that while I agree with the abolition of the Senate, 100% take it out, there's a bigger debate taking shape in this country, Mr. Speaker, over the need for democratic reform. Let me cut to the chase. This week in my province, Mr. Speaker, we have news that 3 more groundfish plants will be shut down, throwing 300 rural Newfoundlanders out of work. More than 20 years after the Northern Cod moratorium, and there's still no recovery plan in place. Ottawa's handling of the fisheries has been a disgrace and an affront to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. Again, how do we ensure that smaller provinces have an equal seat at the Confederation table? From Newfoundland and Labrador's perspective, from the perspective of smaller provinces across the country, that's the debate that must happen, Mr. Speaker. That's a debate that's destined to happen, Mr. Speaker. Yes, the Senate absolutely must be abolished, but the question must also be asked, how do we offset representation by population so that smaller provinces have an equal footing for the good of our culture, Mr. Speaker, for the good of our identity, for the good of future generations?
Finally this week, I asked a question in the House of Commons on employment insurance. Most people are familiar with the changes to employment insurance that basically punish seasonal workers in Atlantic Canada and Newfoundland and Labrador. Also this week, there's news that the Conservative government is cutting $2 billion in transfers to the provinces to pay for things like retraining for people who are on employment insurance. We're going to show a clip of that question in just a second. Before I do, I want to sign off first. Next week is break week in the House of Commons. The Commons won't be open, but it's not a break week for members of Parliament. I'll be in my office in St. John, South Mount Pearl, in Mount Pearl, and I'll be working away next week. If you're out and about and you want to drop by next week, please do. So my next video blog update will be in 2 weeks. Until then, take care.
South Mount Pearl.
So let's see if we have this straight, Mr. Speaker, because people are still shaking their heads. On one hand, Conservatives are sending EI inspectors to people's homes to spy on them, to check up on how many resumes they're sending out each week. On the other hand, Conservatives are taking away a $2 billion transfer to the provinces, a transfer that helps people get back to work, to retrain, to re-enter the workforce. Mr. Speaker, why can't Conservatives see that unemployed Canadians need new skills to find a job more, Mr. Speaker, than they need Big Brother spying on them?
Yes, it's true. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister.